I'll just start by shortly introducing myself. My name is Fredrik Strömberg. I'm the VP of Product and one of the co-founders of Kit and Storykit. For this sort of, in this situation here, in this webinar, I'll be acting some kind of father to these templates and take full responsibility for the high or low quality in them. But what I will try to do today, and I will sort of share my screen and have a presentation for this so you don't have to look at me all the time, is I'll do a more or less sort of short run through on why we think that the use of these templates are a good idea, and sort of what can be the general value of using templates both in a situation like this, but also in general. And then I'll make a sort of structured overview of 5 of the main templates. There are, as Jonas said, there are 8 of them in the package. 3 of them will demand little to no explanation in this context, but I will try to do a sort of a run through of the 5 more elaborate formats and try to find, let's call it a framework for how you can sort of use the scripts, because if you have them or if you will get them, they will also be accompanied by an instruction and lots of instructions in the templates themselves. So there's sort of no use for me to be very detailed and show that, well, you're gonna add this here and this here, because that kind of paint by number stuff is in the instructions and in the slide notes in the templates themselves. So all of that kind of information is sort of, you will already have. But I will talk a little bit about how to try to think about forming the script for these formats. And they will, if screen sharing works, sort of the template from the template example will run on the screen simultaneously while I talk. So that will be a super useful distraction for you to look at when you're tired of hearing me read out loud what's on screen. So with this said, I will now try to share my screen. This is always a sort of an exciting time. See if this works. Well, it seems like I can choose what to share. So if someone just with audio could just tell me if you're seeing a presentation now. It seems like I get the thumbs up from you on my end. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. Stop me if you have any sort of relevant questions or if I make no sense at all. But otherwise, I'll run through this. Yes?
There is en ruta. It's the byggordningsruta. We can see that right now of någon anledning.
Let's see, what are you seeing?
The byggordningsruta. The magical English word for byggordningsruta.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So you oh, wait, you know what? I think I should share something else here. I should probably have this. I'll share my whole screen then, and then we should probably not have that problem. So now you should see any big warnings.
Looking great.
Just a presentation. Sorry, I was sharing some kind of application window. It's tech stuff. I don't know anything about it. So whatever. I'll jump into this, and I'll start by posting this. This is sort of a Venn diagram, and the reason for me including this Venn diagram is because I am legally obliged to include a Venn diagram in every presentation I hold on everything. This is, if I were a user experience designer, I would have been sort of legally demanded to include a screen dump from the minority report, but now I'm more of a product person. That means that I must, by law, include a Venn diagram. Well, never mind. Sort of why do we need these kinds of situational templates that we are discussing in this meeting? Well, they actually meet the demands of a few different sort of things. And I talk about the things we are capable of producing, the things we must talk about, and the things people want to know. And these sort of things meet in different ways. So the things we're capable of producing and the things we must talk about, that's something we probably have existing formats for. And existing formats can be whatever, right, that we already are doing. So they are cheap, they're proactive, but they're kind of non-situational for this thing, this situation that we're in. We also have the things we're capable of producing and the things people want to know, which are probably handled in support channels, that kind of reactive communication. So they're cheap, they can be highly situational, but are always reactive and probably have sort of a less, what should you say, like general role in communication. And then you have the things we must talk about and the things people want to know, which can be combined into new formats, which can be very proactive, very situational, but also very expensive to create. And in the middle of this, we can have some kind of template situation where we're actually sort of, we have interpreted the situation that we're in, and we have created formats specifically for them, but not specifically for each and every sort of piece of information. So this is sort of the framework in which we see that these kinds of templates come in handy. Okay, I'll get a lot less sort of abstract going forward. But adding to this, so it's not just the fact that, well, templates can be a great use, but the actual usage of templates in the communication output has a value. So there's a value in volume, but only if it's feasible, so we can do it, and it's fast and we can do it quickly, and it's frequent, so we can do it quickly and often. So that value creates what I would call some kind of shield of communication around sort of the issue that we're dealing with. So the more we can communicate with some kind of quality, the better it is in these situations, right? And then it needs to be feasible, it needs to be fast, and we need to be able to do it frequently. But it only has value, right, if it's also good. So it needs to be of high quality, it needs to have an ease of use, and it needs to sort of fit the story that we're trying to tell. So there's all these things that sort of needs to go together into these templates, and this is where we've come from when we try to design these templates and how they are sort of as a whole meant to be used, right? It's not like just use one template, so it could be, I mean, you could, but it's a game of volume and it's a game of activity when you want to sort of get ahead of whatever curve you are looking at. So this is just a super short introduction to the kind of framework of thinking that goes behind these templates. And this is something that you will notice when you start using the templates, that we have put a lot of care into sort of how they work, in so much that all animations and behaviors and stuff are sort of well thought out and they fit very well together. So it's a lot about minimizing the amount of sort of hands-on work that you guys have to do. And we've been focusing a lot about this usability and speed issue, that sort of everything from, you know, gathering information and producing script to finding assets and sort of being done should be really quick. So I'll jump into these formats as there is, and the thing that I will be talking about now is not then sort of what image or video goes where, because all of that information is sort of embedded into the templates and into the instruction PDF that exists. But instead of sort of a bit more abstract level, and also how that should lead you to, you know, writing your scripts, because we can't do exactly everything for you. We're trying to help out as much as possible with the heavy lifting stuff, like actually creating the storyboards and you know, having insertable modules and stuff. But you will still need to produce your own scripts. So we'll start with the first one, which we should call latest update. I think perhaps, are you seeing that from me? So I can take that away. Okay, so what is this? What is this format? Well, this is the kind of this is the main update format, but it's also kind of an executive summary format. It's like, this is happening right now. This is the situation right now. It fulfills both a need with sort of the organization itself, that it fulfills the need of, we need to tell people what is happening, but then again, that also serves as like an information want from our customers or other responsible parties, right? An important thing about this, and this goes for a couple of the formats, is that we think that these should be properly time-stamped, because information has a value that is also based on when it's communicated. So these formats are also made for easy updating and stuff. Change timestamp, take down the old information, put up some new information. Okay. So, all right. So how do you do this format? Well, this is a format, since it's kind of an executive summary thing. Someone in communication needs to have a firm grip of sort of what is happening around the organization and the capability of sort of summarizing it. This is something that I feel that everyone is doing anyway, because it's something that you need to do. And then it's just a case of packaging and repackaging when new information arrives, and sort of re-time stamping. And it's also a format that lends itself excellently for just, you know, copying, duplicating a storyboard and doing a new version and publishing. So you won't have to do a new like a totally new script all the time. You just need to make sure that it's updated. So once again, what does this mean for the viewer? And this is something, when I talk about what does it mean, this is something you can look at it like it's as like a way of trying to form your script. In this case, this gives the viewer that executive summary, creates a sense of orientation. And this is something that, this is the role of this template, right? To create a sense of orientation. So make sure that sort of permeates the whole script, and also in the headlines and stuff, so that you try to be very much, this is happening right now, this is what we're doing, right? To be very sort of hands-on with those kinds of things. And another thing that you can think about when creating your script is, will there be a reason for the viewer or the recipient of this to pass it forward, to pass it on to someone else, to share it in social media or wherever there may be? Well, there may be, and it differs from format to format, if you can really sort of see a sort of great reason for someone to share this. In this case, for like the main after the latest updates kind of video, this is a great piece for, as I say, the advocates of the organization or the brand to pass it on in their own networks. It's a good thing that for someone like maybe your staff feels a need to pass this on to tell others what is happening within the organization. There will be other formats that have a lot more sort of built-in or intrinsic sort of shareability. And what can we learn from this then? Well, this is a summarizing piece, but we should be able to get some kind of insight into what sort of areas of the organization that people are most interested in. And when I say for all these formats, what can we learn? So where do we learn this? Well, we can learn this from sort of looking at retention views and stuff, and just sort of regular sharing patterns for stuff. But we could also look at comments and other types of sort of communication around this. And if it gets shared, I mean, have a look at how people are sharing this to see if you can gain some kind of productive insight into how people are viewing this communication, because it may differ from sort of what you have expected it to be. And so be wary about sort of the vectors for sharing for all kinds of format that you are putting out there. So I will do these sort of five blobs of structure for 5 of the formats. So it will be kind of repetitive now, but I've changed the colors of the blobs for each page. So it will be some kind of variation here. So our next format we call What's Going On. I've written this is in many ways sort of the chapters to the latest updates book, if you like. It's kind of the same format, but it should go into much greater detail of what's happening in a specific part of the organization. Or if you're not like a big organization, this is probably sort of your main update format. Tell your viewers, tell your sort of the people following you on social media, tell them what is going on and be kind of detailed about it. Do this in this kind of question and answer format where you can use, I mean, you can use the same questions each and every time you do this. You can change the questions, but I mean, address the issues and do it in some detail. This is also something that we feel that it should have, proper time stamping, because we believe that people feel like this is an update from you and that it should sort of fulfill that role. The same goes for this as for the previous format, but you also need to look very hard at what do the organization need us to communicate. So I mean, it's one part is what do our recipients or what does our audience want to know of what's happening, but you also have to take into consideration what do we really need to communicate. And that is something that goes through a few of these formats, that you have to be kind of normative in your communication as well. So you have to set some kind of it's not an example because you're telling people how to do, but it's kind of priming people to how to act and how we expect them to act in relation to us and this issue. So you need to look very hard at sort of your own organizational needs of communicating stuff. So it's not just about sort of, giving people what they want to know, but you also have to get out what you want to say, right? So, I mean, the hopefully the line between those two are very thin, but sometimes they're not, and you have to sort of take care of your own internal needs as well. Because this will give your sort of the viewer the information on how to act in relation to you. So in a sense, it has an how-to function, but I mean, mainly it will be an update of what's happening. Okay, so what would be the reasons for sharing this kind of format from a recipient to others? Well, there will be reasons if the information is in there is pertinent for them to share. So, right, if you have a local audience or a local sort of target group, if you are a physical outlet of some kind, that may lead to people sharing, with saying like, look, this is what's happening at or in place X or Y. So it becomes sort of, I saw this information, I think it will be useful to someone else. So have that in mind to make sure also that the information here is actually really useful. And that means taking it a bit from this is what needs to be done over to this is what you need to do in relation to this, okay? And so what can we learn from this? Well, once again, it's about looking at if and when this gets shared along and if it gets consumed, try to see and try to find out what in it is the most sort of relevant piece for the viewers, because that will inform us on matters of what can we do more about, what can we clarify, what do we need to press harder for. Okay, so now we'll switch over to what we call the person in the situation or in the crisis. This is a much more sort of emotionally driven format. It's about showing people that is working on and in the situation. We want to use this, in lack of a better term, to create an understanding of what is happening through the lens of the people that are actually dealing with it. This is also a way of, even if it may sound sort of cynical, we have now unlimited minutes in this meeting. That was great. We will try to use this for some kind of norm to communication as well, to have the people in the situation also tell us as the viewer a bit about how we are expected to act in relation to the situation. So this is a simple format to produce. It will consist very much of, having a standard questionnaire or doing a quick phone interview, asking people in the organization to sort of do their own, with the help of a colleague or themselves, make it a smartphone selfie, make it a short movie, something. It may be so that the more sort of lo-fi it is, the better it could resonate with the audience. But it's a really simple format to use, and it should be very standardized. It should revolve around like what is happening right now, how are you guys handling the situation, what do you expect sort of people getting in touch with you or something to act. If it would be, say, a kindergarten teacher, then that could be a good place of saying that, well, we need to rely heavily on parents not letting their sick kids into the kindergarten and stuff, if that would be the corona situation. Okay, but make sure that you have like a high efficiency in producing this. This does not need to be a big dollar or even dollar production. This can be done very, very efficiently. If done properly, this will create like a better understanding for the situation and how that situation, the sort of issue that we're dealing with, how that is affecting people working with it and people working in it. So trying to create this human connection from the viewer to the people working with it is meaningful in that sense, and that is also what will drive sharing. And this is something that, it's a super. We won't win any prizes for discovering that people tend to like and share stories that have a human interest. But you need to sort of also try to cater to that need to see people in situations and to create that sense of empathy with them. Because if it's done right, it creates a direct path to the situation, and when we're also being normative about it, say that, well, you shouldn't, let your sick kids into kindergarten, or you should really, you shouldn't go on the subway if you're not X or Y. If a person in that situation is talking about it, it will create a better effect for us. What we can learn from this is to see what kind of stories resonate, and just see what types of people in our organization that seems relevant and important to the viewers. Yes, and here's another type of format that will that revolves around people, which of the three later on areas. You could do updates from the organization in the form of interviewing a leader or a spokesperson for the organization. So this is more or less just, giving relevant information, but giving it in the form of a Q&A interview with someone who's a stakeholder and who's a responsible party at your end. This means both sort of putting faces to this information. If it's, it could be your CEO or a elected official, but it could also be people that have specific positions within the organization that sort of is really relevant to a specific part of the whole issue. Doing this in a sort of a Q&A format, it's both it's a good way of presenting the information, but it also creates this sense of we being the advocate for the viewers, right? So and we can use that format to ask tough questions, because it's hard to have a tough piece of information if it's not an answer to a tough question. So this, if done correctly, this will sort of create this sense of, well, you have to answer this question for me now. Even if it's sort of super controlled and it doesn't need anything else, but I mean, almost, it doesn't necessarily need to be an interview in production, but it comes out as an interview, right? And it also puts a face to this information and to the things that we're saying. So this is a good way of getting in front of an issue, and it's a good way of addressing like tougher questions. Okay, so why would someone want to share stuff like this? Well, I mean, if there's good information in the answers, that would be a main reason for passing this on. It's like, yeah, finally we're getting answers to these questions, or this is a good answer to that question, or wow, I hadn't thought about that question. So spend some time on honing in on the good questions, and like I said, don't be shy to make them kind of tough. Still, it's not like an on-air interview we're talking about here. It's a very controlled environment, but it still needs to feel a bit tough. And what can we learn from this? Well, I mean, we can learn what kinds of questions resonate, and also we can learn who of our sort of representatives will actually work as spokespeople for our organization. And I mean, there could be some real difficulties in knowing if it's the sort of the issue or the information in the video, or if it's the person sort of that we've put out there that is creating the interest. But I mean, both works, but it's a good way of gauging that as well, because as you all know, in these kinds of situations, it's not always the people that we think are the best spokespeople that turn out to be. And then we have another sort of putting people out in front of the issues that we call expert advice or tips from the experts. This is also a way that we want to communicate stuff that is not only the here and now, or this is what's happening, but also can be in the form of what's happening late. Can shift a bit of focus to the future, and can shift a bit of focus to being very sort of productive. And this is something that you as a viewer or as our client, or something that you can address yourself, but we will take you by the hand and we will run you through this with the help of some kind of expert. So this is very much sort of repackaging information that we need, stuff that we have been talking about in non-crisis situations, if that's so, but also, of course, it can be like new guidelines. But the main thing here is to put a face to this advice, and to try to be also, when creating this, it's like 3 things to think about, or 5 things you need to know, and be very sort of list based, and here are some great advice. So you are very like, this is how it works, and and very, what should we say, functional in your communication. Well, this, and if done right, this will be very useful information. So it creates this sense of direction in regards to sort of this mutual issue. So a good example would be if you were an insurance company or a bank or something. I mean, it would be obvious to talk about, okay, so how should I act with my savings now? Or if you're like a union organization, how should I act now? There's tons of just very, very like advice-based stuff that you can do. That also shifts focus from the very much here and now, and pointed a bit towards sort of what happens after. People will pass it on if this information has productive value, if they feel that it's good advice that they want to share with someone else, and that sharing itself makes them look good. So be very generous when creating these scripts. I mean, there's no use in trying to make this being something else than actual productive, useful advice for your clients, and that will in itself be the basis for people sharing it. And the things we can learn from this, right, it's about what issues are important for people. Sometimes that lesson will be sort of a bitter pill to swallow. It could be the things that we don't really foresee them, being very interested in, that can have the highest value for them. It could feel a bit cynical. People may be concerned about money when they should be concerned about health, we think. But I mean, be very open-minded to what people feel are or is sort of productive value for them. So, and then we have, so these were sort of the 5 more scripted formats that will have you, creating scripts. It's very much paint by numbers, the way it's done. And if you're sort of in any doubt, just try them out as is, and then sort of elaborate on them as well, because there is value in volume, as we said. But we also have added 3 more, like very, very, very structured formats. One is an FAQ format, which allows you to just, use the frequently asked questions or the frequently given answers that you have in support or in some kind of knowledge banks or whatever. Use the most relevant of those questions and answers, and make, outgoing communication with it. This is like, it's just an outreach support function, but it can have a great value if it's relevant information. We also have done a really short, like, urgent bulletin format that is super, super simple to use. If there's something that you need to get out, it's like an important message to the general public, as it says in the script, ultra short, entirely text-based, it will take you 15 seconds to produce. I'm exaggerating, it will take 30 seconds to produce. And you can get it out the door like within 5 minutes, if there's something that you really need to point to. And then we have a more static format, which can be, just run as some kind of blanket communication about important sort of contact routes and stuff. So there are some specifically made slides for that you can have phone numbers and URLs and stuff, just to make sure that you're putting that information out there as well.